Okay, folks, happy Sunday morning. And we'll go ahead and get started where we left off with a bunch of Soviet weapons here. It's kind of in parts, just kind of drying. That's the only thing about this process I don't really like, is that you have this, you have to wait for the wash to dry, which is very unusual in working with acrylics where you have to wait for anything to dry, in my opinion. Maybe the clear coat a little bit, but pretty much everything else, you can just roll from one thing right into the other. And that is, oh, this is just kind of stuck on there a little bit. Okay, this is actually the one that goes here. 37, the top of the 37, this is the top of the 85. So these are the three weapons that we're working on. We got the 76 millimeter infantry gun, the 37 millimeter anti-aircraft gun, and the 85 millimeter anti-aircraft gun. So this is what our goal is to get this little guy done. I don't think that's going to be able to happen today, whoop-dee, but this is what we're going to work towards, working on that. But these have the Russian green overall, and then they've got the replacement for the Agrax Earthshade that I've been using is the Strong Tone from Army Painter, which I'm not a huge Army Painter fan, but I do like this better than the Agrax Earthshade because it's not as gummy, nor is it as expensive. In Soviet Russia, paint waits for you to dry, comrade. That's right. Good morning, or good evening in your case. I suspect you've been up all night. Up all night with Nordic. Be a name for a good show on USA. Didn't they have one of those up all night shows in the late 80s, early 90s on USA? Probably show things like Porky's and stuff like that. Okay, so here's these three communist gun crewmen. We'll move them off to the side. Let's get the you had to play Human Alarm Clock, okay. What do you want to be when you grow up, Tommy? What do you want to be when you grow up, Mikey? I want to be a human alarm clock. Bad choice. USA did have a show called Up All Night, but I was too young to watch it. You didn't have a TV in your room? I had a very small television. And what's crazy, if you go back and look at that stuff in the 80s mainly, the picture quality is horrible. But that's just how the human eye just adjusts to everything. It's just absolutely horrible, the picture quality. So you look at old videos on YouTube and you're like, man, this is a really crappy video of it. No, that's actually what it looked like, but you just forget. You're like 8 when that show was on. I don't know that I watched it. It just reminded me of that name of that. Back when MTV had videos and music. What the hell does it have on there now? I don't know. I don't have cable. I don't watch that. I don't watch that crap. Okay, we need to get Mr. Russian Green back out here. How you know it's not Mrs. Russian Green? Because I pick its gender. It doesn't get to decide. Let me get a brush out here that I don't mind getting abused a little bit. has some green already on it. So we know that this is a candidate of Soviet abuse right here. A candidate for Soviet abuse. All right, we're going to need this, and we're going to need Mr. Dark Sand out here as well. Yeah, I believe that's the color I was using. Man, it feels like it's been ages since I've painted a vehicle. And it hasn't. It's been maybe 2 months. You did have an epiphany moment about the long ladder that goes to Scharnhorst. There are 2 openings in 2 different deck parts of the superstructure with the 2 radar masts. Who makes that? Who makes that model that you're having instruction issues? There's a lot of companies have instruction issues. Well, you said you like the challenge. You don't want to build a Tamiya kit where everything's all hunky-dory. You know, I'd rather build a model that goes together well. But I'll tell you this, when somebody says some of those kits, they're like those rodent kits, a lot of people respond with, oh, those are impossible to build. I gave up. I threw it in the trash. All that kind of stuff. That like empowers me to like, oh, really? Well, let me show you how it's done. So I can sympathize with you a little bit. Flyhawk, instructions fine. The photo etch instructions a problem. Ah, okay. It's an ancient Chinese secret where they go. Nice thing about dry brushing this is you're using such little paint, you can literally grab what you just were painting over. I remember one of the videos that I took, which I probably have to relearn how to play that game if I go back to it right now, on Gates of Hell Ostfront. As I had a Panzer II, and one of these bastards was shooting at me from inside of a city, inside of a little town, and he was just creating all kinds of chaos. So I ended up like doing an end around and charging him, and when I run into him, I encounter it at like point blank range, and I just do an overrun. Which is funny because about overruns, as someone who is self-taught that vehicles have no business being anywhere near built-up areas or buildings or a town or anything like that. You know, a tank's got no business mixing it up with outhouses and barns and things like that. You know, they don't need to be anywhere near that where infantry can just be hunkering down and just, they don't need to be within grenade range of any building. I hear terms like overrun and things like that in like playing advanced squad leader, and I'm like, why would you ever overrun something with a freaking tank? You're way too close. You're gonna get yourself killed. You know, I'm a big proponent of, you know, the tank sits far, if it's supporting infantry, it sits far away from them and just shells the crap of them or keeps their head down and stuff like that. Until I got put in a situation where I got this vehicle, this thing that fires relatively slow, and it's about 50 meters in front of me, and I've got this 20 millimeter cannon that I don't know how effective it's going to be against us. It's just friggin' run the bitch over. There you go, overrun. Well, you feel stupid that you didn't think that the ladder went where it does. The picture with the photo etched for that area is just too blurry and small, which is a problem. Well, why do you feel stupid? It's not like you served on the ship. It happens. Every model you make, you'll get better at the next one. Or, maybe not better at the next one, but the challenges that come, you're kind of prepared for challenges a little bit better. Hey, just think how much better you are at building models than most people. There you go. When in doubt, floor it. That's right. Well, it's just really difficult for me I tend to be a conservative player. Why take risks? Make the other guy take risks. And like Patton says, your job isn't die for your country. It's make the other poor bastard die. My job isn't to freaking sacrifice my vehicle. It's to make the other guy sacrifice his vehicle. That's kind of my MO to play. I mean, unless you're playing a situation where there's no other way out, right? I just I don't go and do stupid shit. I don't do charges and stuff like that when you don't need to. Generally, I don't do stuff like that. So the idea of overrunning with a vehicle, I'm like, why would you do that? Oh, now you know. Okay, we're going to lighten this green up. How much is on these things? I mean, I already got the green. Now, let's not hop around. Let's do one vehicle, one gun. Actually, just discovered we went. I was watching Oz Scale Modeling, where he has a playlist for building the kit. I saw where he put it on, and it just clicked. Huh. Oz Scale Modeling. He's from Australia. Yeah, I don't think I've seen any modelers do anything together other than the two Eastern European dudes, who I can't remember who they are right now. And a couple other guys. I really like seeing unboxing videos of this seems awfully yellow. I'm pretty sure the other color is dark. Yeah, it still looks the same. It's probably I was gonna say the neon, but this is not supposed to be neon. Paint fades, the sunlight fades paint something fierce. If you go and look at the vehicles that have been sitting around in the sun for a long time, and I went to Camp Blanding and did a walkthrough on all the vehicles, they have some Shermans that are almost this color, this green that's here. And damn well they weren't painted that way. You know damn well they were painted, dark olive drab at some point. But, 30 or 40 years or even more in the sun will just bleach the shit out of them. And that's all that's left. 2/3 of the time, you should be making the enemy dance to your tune. Yep. That's right. I was just talking to somebody about. I went in and had drinks with a coworker on Friday, and we have a little beer brewer right next door almost. Kind of strange considering this is kind of out in the country, but there's like this modern office area or whatever, and they put one in there. And one of the things that we were talking about was chess. And I'd rather go to work than play chess. I really have no interest in chess. I don't find it entertaining. I'm not programmed correctly to enjoy it, nor do I want to be programmed correctly to enjoy it. It's just not my thing. But one of the things is that we're all programmed differently. And if you're talking about playing games, I am really bad slash I'm not fucking interested in the chess type of strategy where you're looking 4 and 5 turns ahead. And part of it is the way I'm born. You know, we're all programmed differently. Some people can't figure out the best thing to do right then and now, but are really good for long-term planning. I hate doing long-term planning because I'm not good at it, and there's so many things that change in what I do for a living in the short term that have a snowball effect, that trying to plan in detail too far in advance is just beating your head into the wall. So you kind of need to be, the way I look at it is, it's kind of, you know, the people that focus on the mountains, but they don't notice there's a fucking bridge out right in front of them and they go into the cliff. They fall off the bridge. So it's almost kind of like, you know, you have this view, and as you get closer to it, you sharpen your view on what's going on. You don't need to focus on all the details in the back because it's too, but anyhow, I'm not programmed to play chess, nor do I understand. So I told him, I said, you know, I play games all the time, or I do things all the time that involves strategy, tactics, whatever it is. But my MO operation is generally look at my position, how do I make it stronger? And in making it stronger, how do I make my opponents weaker? And just do that every turn. Just generally, that's how I play. Like, okay, this is good, but it could be better. How can I make it better? By doing this. Okay, let's do that. And oh, that also weakens them, and they have to react to me getting stronger. That's basically how I play everything. Unless you're in a situation where there's something to exploit because an opportunity appears right then and there. I don't do this. All right, well, I'm going to look at this, and all right, halfway through the game, I'm going to go over here and make him do. I don't do all that crap. I'm not programmed for it, and I think that somebody that would be programmed and be really good at that would probably be really bad at my job, because they would be constantly, I operate by critical path, like stuff. You can't work on whatever the hell you want to. You got to work on what's the next most important thing to do. And I am not a good chess player, nor do I want to be. And chess to a game is kind of like the kind of math I'm not good at. Like I would say I'm good at math, and I use it all the time. But there's some math stuff I just doesn't work with my brain set. If I'm doing some kind of a math and it's not, and I'm calculating things that I don't really have an idea of what the number should look like thereabouts before I do the calculation, it just becomes unreal to me. Like if you go, okay, I need to figure out what this and this is, and it should be about this amount. And if you're doing all these negative, imaginary numbers with, it's not solving for X. And people that say algebra is useless, you're an idiot. You're using algebra every fucking day unless you're in a prison cell. And you probably still are using algebra. So, okay, how many guys can I fight off me before they don't take no for an answer? You're probably still solving for X, okay? But I'm talking about stuff, quadratic formula bullshit, all that other kind of stuff, that just doesn't make any sense to me. Like a lot of people, including someone I'm married to, I'm not going to tell you who that is. What? There's more than one? No. Does not like geometry. And I was blessed with having a geometry teacher in high school that was superb. And I nailed that freaking course because it's stuff that makes sense to me. And it was a teacher that had the right mindset that I could understand. And I nailed freaking geometry. You sound like Montgomery. He was too occupied with not losing a battle that he was with than he was with winning the battle. I sound like Montgomery. I don't have a mustache. Sorry. I'd make a terrible Soviet general. Speaking of Montgomery, and speaking of you, you recommended that. What was the name of that movie that I really enjoyed? The Lost Battle, The Forgotten Battle, or something like that. And Mitch and I watched that independently. And the first thing that stuck, and we both liked the movie. And the first thing that stuck in our mind is you've got all those Germans that are defending the canals, and it's like, and the guys are getting massacred crossing there. It's like, dude, that's what offboard artillery is. Freaking 105 and 25 pounder the shit out of those positions, and after they're smoldering, then you go in there with infantry. You don't go just bring infantry in there just taking freaking casualties. That's just stupid, you know. You got to suppress the crap out of something. I mean, so that's why you have artillery or stuff and air power. You suppress the crap out of it, and then you go in there and pick off the survivors. You are more suited for squad level command. Yeah. Yeah, I don't like that grand strategy. I don't know. I do pretty good in that. What's that Battle of the Bulge game or whatever? There's just stuff I'm just not interested in. I don't like to read about that stuff either, you know. I like to read about stuff and I'm picturing, okay, that vehicle probably has this type of number on it and this markings from this unit. That's the kind of stuff I look at it. Look at it from a war game, from a modeling standpoint. I have far more grand tactical mind. Commanding a squad or platoon just doesn't work for me. Commanding a brigade, division, corps, army. Yeah, corps, army doesn't. What's that game that everybody likes? Hearts of Iron? I'd never play shit like that. F that. You know, even like a book like Rise and Decline of the Third Reich, okay? You're talking about value for your Audible thing. You know, you get an Audible credit. I think Rise and Decline of the Third Reich is like 52, 56 hours long. Like, there's a good value. I don't want to read that. It just, way up here I'm not interested in that. If you're looking at stuff that's too grand tactical, you can't admire the rivets on a KV1 from that viewpoint. It's just too far removed. And I don't mind the level of play that Command Decision is. Actually, I like that. I guess that would be considered grand tactical. I don't know. I like that. I've just done that a lot, and I'd rather have more detail. Never played Hearts of. Oh, you know what game I absolutely detest? Well, you should know if you've been paying attention. Rise and Decline of the Third Reich. Speaking of which, I was talking about the book earlier, but whatever the Avalon Hill game. Absolutely hate that game. Fuck that. I'd rather go to work than play that. Most people like what you like, though. Most war gamers or board gamers or people who like military board games tend to like strategic shit. They're not tactical, tactical grunts like me. But now, one game I did play a long time is a computer game called Second Front. And I want to say it's by Gary Grigsby before he started making his own stuff. And I played the living shit out of that. And that was, I guess it was hexes, even though they weren't marked as hexes, but that's how it was. If you moved up on the cursor, and it was EGA graphics, it didn't look too bad for the time. I played that a lot, mainly because there was nothing else to play, and it was World War II, and there's even Russian Front for that matter. I did play that quite a bit in the early 90s. And I did pretty good at that. Well, one of my favorite games of all time was this series by 360 called V for Victory. And that's not a tactical game. But that way you could really play with the supply and stuff. And I'll never forget this one guy that I knew had it. I'd never heard about the game. He's like, hey, come over to my house. We'll hot seat it. And I'm like, all right. So he's like, I mean, I think he knew I was a war gamer. I had played stuff like Command Decision and stuff like that. Plenty of it. Each unit is normally a battalion. Is normally each unit, and each hex is a kilometer or 2 kilometers or something like that. Could stack 3 battalions in each. That was the stacking limit. And we play some market garden scenario with American paratroopers. And I beat the shit out of him. And I didn't know how to play the game. I mean, I know how to play the stuff. I just don't know what to click on to do what I. So once I figure out how to do that, yeah, you got to hustle. You want to go and control a point, you better get there before the enemy. And then the risk is, all right, do I freaking haul ass there and get there? So then, even though I'm tired, now he still has to defend against me or sit around and putts and not have enough time. But I don't like playing games like, say, where everybody's tanks are this. You're so zoomed out that what kind of tanks are they? Don't worry about them. They're tanks. Well, I'm worried about it. I want to know, are they Panzer 3s or 4s? What kind of Panzer 4s are they? Are they H's or G's? I mean, I just have too much 1/35th scale modeling, anal retentive treadhead shit to not want to play at that kind of a level. Oh, they're Shermans. Well, which one? Do they have wet stowage? Hey, Marcus, good morning. I feel like the reason I don't know if I ever want to play ASL, I'm just not into squad level stuff or fighting battles at that scale. You'd enjoy it if you play the right person. I wouldn't enjoy the turn order. It's too restrictive. It's not flexible enough. I finally started playing Musket and Pike from GMT. I got through the first turn of Edgehill. The game engine's quite nice, starting to pick it up and hope it clicks by the battle's end. English Civil War just doesn't interest me. It's better than American Civil War, but not by much. I don't know, it just doesn't interest me. But I have to say, of all the periods of combat, I'd say probably the one that's the least popular is like Battles of the Louis XIV, Lace War stuff. It just seems like that period is just not very popular. Okay, now we're gonna, and I don't think I need to use a wet palette or anything like that. I think we can just wing this. I don't actually mind this being on a surface that can absorb moisture. Let's pick out some details and bring them up. And then we'll paint the tires and then we'll do the weathering. A lot of it is the people you play with. You play with the wrong people. Like, I don't want to play a game by myself. So here's what happened last night. We get home from dinner and my daughter's in town. Went to the range yesterday. She'd been wanting to go for a while. We did that, kind of putzed around the house. Ended up going out to dinner. And she was going to have a friend over, her best friend here in town, to watch a movie about 9, which I can't do anything at 9. I was like, I can't get online and paint at 9. I'm either going to be up till midnight, which is too late, which will screw up waking up this morning, or I'm going to fall asleep and not have a whole lot of energy. So I'm like, I'm just going to go to bed. So so I'm like, well, let me play some games on the computer. I was just bored. I just didn't want to play a game by myself. You know, it's just been there, done that. It's not going to keep me entertained. I think I played one game of what's the name, Perfect Admiral or something like that. I played like one scenario of it. It's kind of an interesting game. It's a very good looking game. What's that thing called? It's called Ultimate Admiral Dreadnoughts. It's a beautiful game where you can design your own ships and stuff like that. But you know, after I've played the game so many times, I kind of lose interest. You know, so I'm just gonna go to bed because I just didn't feel like playing a game, and I wanted to make sure that I wasn't not going to wake up. I didn't want to be too tired to do this in the morning because I really like doing this first thing in the morning. It kind of sets the rest of my day on a happy course. So I went to bed at like 9:30, like an old man. Cavalry in musket and pike runs a risk of pursuing enemy units off the map if they roll too high in the pursuit chart. Well, that makes sense. It's something to get used to because once a unit is off the map for pursuit, it's gone from the battle. That doesn't count against your casualties, though, I would imagine. I'm going to have a really hard time trying to learn how to play this game again, this by myself. I think I'm going to have to do sessions where I'm going to have a live video with you guys, even if nobody's watching, just to keep myself engaged, keep myself verbal about what I'm talking about. And then I don't know. I mean, maybe nobody will watch it, but if I don't do stuff like that, just like I can't sit here and do this without being filmed. It's just like I just don't want it. I'd rather do something else. I want it. I want to do things socially, and this allows me to do something, social. In some, I don't know. It's just kind of hard to describe. I used to call it. I'd hate for something really cool to happen and nobody's watching it. Nobody gets to. It's kind of like that. It's kind of like, you know, all this cool stuff that could be happening and nobody's. I'm gonna switch directions here a little bit. Let me put it up here. It's drying a little too fast for my taste. I just don't want to go and grab the wet palette wherever the hell it is and bring it out here. But I would just rather go to sleep than learn how to play a rule set. You know, you'd be on. This battle is the smallest in the game, so it's serving as a learning battle of the mechanics of the game. Yeah, I guess at some point, I'm going to this con in a week, and I'm not excited about playing any of the games. I don't mind the social interaction. I wonder how many people I'm. I wonder how many people I'm gonna piss off and tell them you stink or something like that. Oh well, they deserve it for stinking. What and did something we'd never done before. It was kind of an interesting experience. We all wanted Indian food, so we go to an Indian restaurant, and we all like Indian food. I just don't know what the fuck the stuff's called. I don't, you know. I mean, I know a couple basic things, but I don't know what it is. So it's like you need pictures. So it was like I'm looking at the menu, and it's like a foreign fucking language, you know. I was like, we do a lot of cruising. There's a part on the cruise ships we would go on. I don't know if it's common through all of them, but a lot of the kitchen staff are from India, so they have their favorite things that they cook in this little section of the buffet, and they put the name of what everything is, and of course it's gibberish. I don't know what it is. I don't eat it frequently enough to know it. But you can look at it like, okay, that looks good. That looks good. So you try a little thing, and everything we end up trying is wonderful. I just need to take notes next time I go and find out what the hell things are called, because I really don't have a clue. My philosophy is someone stinks, they're out in public, they deserve to be mocked and stunned. Spicy food is a no-go for me. Yeah. I don't think that I had anything that I would call spicy yesterday, but I am really very spice friendly. I like spicy food. There's nothing worse to me than bland food, or food that would taste like ketchup. That would be worse. That would be, I'd rather not eat. Yeah, I need to sit down and like do one of the scenarios. One of the scenarios, and I always say this is probably and I don't have to play it exactly the same. It doesn't really matter whether it's balanced. It's just to kind of get different things working with each other. But this particular scenario is out of the red wave. I think it's Red Waves is what it's called. Red Guards at Kursk is the name of the skirmish campaigns book. And what it is, it's a couple of T-34s with a squad mounted on each. That's all the Soviets have. Two T-34s, each with a squad, somewhere between eight to 10 guys. I forget exactly how many, 7 to 10, something like that. And I think half of them have submachine guns and half of them have rifles. I don't think they all have Pepe Shahs. I think it's 50-50 or something like that. And they're on T-34s, and they come on the board. Okay, the board's only like 3x3, something like that. It's a relatively small board. And their objective is to get off the opposite edge. Pretty simple, right? It doesn't say they have to dismount. They can ride on the back of a T-34 as much as they want, you know. The Defenders is a German anti-tank gun, a PaK-38 in this scenario, which I think is really strange because I'm going to bet at Kursk most German anti-tank guns were PaK-40s, not PaK-38s. But regardless, you play the scenario however it is, and if you don't like it, then you can upgrade it. The Germans have one gun crew with one anti-tank gun. There's a anti-tank ditch that goes across the field, and behind that there's like a fence and some light woods, not woods that a vehicle can't go through, but light woods. And the Germans have like one infantry squad or something like that. Maybe a machine gun team or something like that. Not a Schwere machine gun team, but just an extra MG42. That's about it. That's all they have. So it's relatively simple, and that would allow you to if you have a scenario with just those weapon systems right there, there's a couple things. When you're trying to learn a system, there's a couple of interactions that I think are crucial to see if the game plays correctly. Obviously, if you're doing individual rifle fire and machine guns against each other, that's going to sort itself out no matter what you're doing. That's pretty easy to and I've played the game to that level, okay? And I think it works really well. I've played the game 3 or 4 times. It's just been 20 years, and I was pretty happy with the results. I haven't used vehicles at all. And one of the things that would be interesting to do to see how the game handles it is, all it would take is you put like an infantry squad is in the middle of the woods on an ambush against a column of trucks. Okay, Opel Blitzes, gas trucks, whatever the hell you want to do. And the Germans only have machine gun and rifle fire, maybe submachine guns. And not at point blank range, but something reasonable, like, maybe they're a foot away from it or something like that. And they have to try to take out those trucks and see how small arms handles taking out soft vehicles exactly in the rules and see if that works okay. One of those things that's always handled, can they puncture the tires? What can they do to the tires? What can they do? That kind of stuff. Not tank versus tank combat. That's going to work out just fine. And the other thing in this scenario I was describing with the infantry mounted on the T-34s, let's say the Pak-38 fires at a T-34, right? And he gets a hit on the T-34. He's firing AP. And he gets a hit on the T-34. What does the infantry on the back of the T-34 suffer from that? Now, in my brain, in real life, I know what kind of scenarios are going to happen, right? They're going to get stunned, or some guys may fall off, or they could get injured from the shrapnel, or that's assuming that the tank doesn't blow up, and then obviously worse things happen. But I'm just wondering, how does something like that work? How does the game handle that? And is that an accurate representation? Because the idea that, oh, well, you're not firing at the infantry, nothing will happen to it, is the wrong tack. And I'm not saying the game would do that. I just have to look in there and figure stuff out. So that's kind of two little scenarios. So maybe that's kind of the mini scenarios I have to set up. Is a couple of those things. So I'm genuinely curious how it's handled. Now the one thing is because the game, the scale of the game is so damn short. You have vehicles that normally would be like impenetrable or can't do anything against something else, are able to do things because the range is basically point blank. And you're talking about something like a T-34 versus a Tiger. Okay, a T-34 is going to be able to damage a Tiger if it lands a hit, because the longest range in the game, if you're shooting across an 8-foot table, is like 250 yards. So it's like really, really close. Don't fall into the trap of thinking Lincoln was a saint and this great president. He was neither of those things. Huh. I don't really have an opinion of him, but it's good enough to be on the $5 bill, I guess. But that's kind of the scenarios I need to set up or look at, just look and see how it handles that kind of stuff. I've got all these vehicles and they're not all going to show up at the same time. I would think that even 3 vehicles on a side is a whole lot. You could do, you could make up your own stuff. You could like take a Panzer III and a Panzer II, and they have to hold off like 4 or 5 T-26s from going from, or BT-7s from going from one side of the board to the other. So then the Soviet tanks have to decide, are they going to stop the fire or just plow right through and just see what happens? Just see what happens. Okay, can we make this brush work? Yes. All right, where is the magic juices? Please tell me I did not put those away. I think I did, didn't I? This is really annoying with half of my stuff out and half of my stuff back. And we have another open house today, so It's perpetual limbo. And I'm not going to just be like, I'm not working on something for 6 months because I'll go crazy. I'll turn into an asshole. Okay, this is my therapy session. So I need my therapy session. Oh, let me go back here. Which rule set? This is the face of battle. Not available anymore. You like salt, garlic, onion powder on food, but other than that, I can't risk it. Yeah, I can't imagine painting American Civil War stuff. It just doesn't interest me on any level. You should have seen me going to Gettysburg. I wasn't thrilled on the way to Historicon. That was cool. I have no, there's nothing there for me. It's totally flat. I enjoyed it about as much as my wife would have enjoyed it. Now, it shouldn't be in here, and it's not. I'm looking for my Flow Aid. It's a big bottle. It's not there. It's not there. It's not there. What the hell's it doing down here? Well, I found it. Who cares? Now, I got everything tucked away, and the top of my desk is like a zoo. So I may actually have to pick it up a little bit before somebody comes looks at the house. So. All right. The Soviet tires. Let's not grab it by that, or that could end up breaking off. The Flow Aid makes such a huge difference. It's so easy. Keeps your brush from catching on this. So last time I played my rules, I ran it at a convention. That was my first mistake. The second mistake was I had everybody on two different sides, like is normal. That was a mistake. I didn't know that one was a mistake until then. And it's, our convention has the curse. Some people would say it's a good thing, but I'm used to playing long games. It has the curse that every game has to be in 4-hour sessions. So you can't just run your game from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. It's got to be 9 to 1, and then 2 to 6, and then 8 to midnight. That's your 4-hour sessions. And if you have a game that's running in one of those sessions and it doesn't last till the end of the session, no problem. But you can't have a game that runs longer than that. You can have a game that's multiple sessions, but unless the same people are going to commit to playing it, it's just going to be, kind of a mess. The other problem I had, and I didn't know this, is stupid of me. I'm just trying to do a scenario and just seeing how it works, but I don't want to spend an hour explaining the rules to people. And I don't do a good job of explaining things. I don't set out to do that. It's just not one of my qualities without an outline. If I have an outline, yeah, but if I'm just like trying to just jump around, yeah, I don't do that very well. So my intention, whenever I get around to the point of having live players, is we'll have all the players on one side, and I'll explain nothing. You'll learn as you go, and because just doing an outline is just exhausting for me. It just seems like busy work and stuff. And maybe, outline some things, but not every single little aspect of it. And I'll just run I'll run the bad guys, whoever the bad guys happen to be on that side. Of course, it's whoever my guys are fighting. So, whoever the opponents are fighting. And play it that way. Because no matter what you explain, you're still going to have to look things up. So you might as well just look things up and everybody kind of learns at the same time. And I think that's how I want to go about it. So. But the meat and potatoes of the rules is not difficult to understand at all. It's really simple. Everybody gets an action when your chit comes up. If your chit's not up, guess what? You don't do anything. It's really simple. So, and there's no opportunity fire in it. And that's what really drags the game down. Oh, well, hold on. Move the guy back to here where I can see him, Now I'll shoot. It has no opportunity fire. But you're only using one person at a time. So how do you get a snapshot on somebody? Well, you got to drop a fire lane or something like that with a machine gun. And you put a fire lane down, and it's this area. And if you walk into there, then there's a chance you can take some bullets. But the reason we went with this rule set, I was coming up with my own, and it handled so many things with the same amount of detail that I was looking for in my own rule set that I was really happy with it. I'm like, these guys already did all the work. I think the only difference is the game uses an inch equals 2 meters, and I was using a centimeter equals a meter. And I might make the executive decision of using my own measurement because I like the idea of a centimeter is a meter. It makes freaking sense. That way the whole thing is metric. You can measure it in centimeters and add a 0 to it, and that's how many meters you got. Right? No, you measure it in centimeters, that's how many meters you got. Yeah, you don't even have to add the 0. And you're playing in damn near actual scale with the figures. What I find is really strange is, basically the United States is the only place that uses imperial measurements. But other countries like, a lot of rule sets are English rule sets, two fat lardies, that kind of stuff. I would even say that most historical wargaming sets are from England, Great Britain, United Kingdom. Yet they still use inches. So, I mean, they save it for... You would think that their stuff would be metric. I like metric because you don't deal with quarters of an inch and 3/16 and that nonsense. It's... I don't know that I've seen something that uses centimeters or millimeters for measurement or centimeters for measurement and deals with half of a centimeter. 3.5 centimeters. And they would just be 35 millimeters. Just call it millimeters and move them. Whole numbers, baby. I think we got all the tires on this guy. And we'll need it for that to dry a little bit. And then we can dry brush the other stuff. What time are we looking at? 7. Man, time flies by when you're busy doing something. This thing is so delicate. There's so many little parts that are to scale, so to speak. In scale, correctly proportioned, which is a problem with durability sometimes. And I can't be on here super long today because I gotta get the house ready for the showing, and we're gonna go out of town. We gotta take the daughter back. About a 4.5 hour drive both ways. Not too bad, but traffic can be. People can be extra stupid on any day of the week, really. I was gonna say Sundays, but that's really any day of the week. Why is this all crock? There we go. No gun shield for the 85 millimeter gun. Though I'm not sure if the 88, the German 88, had a gun shield when it was just used as an anti-aircraft role. Actually, believe it or not, I don't have one of those. It was just too ubiquitous to get one of those. I figured, let me get other guns instead. I usually do when I'm doing this, I just hold on to the end. I hold on to the end of the gun, so I'll wear off some of the green paint anyways. I'll leave the black underneath, and you get a free charred look for the end of the barrel. You don't even have to do anything there. That was just kind of by accident. I guess that would be a textbook happy accident. It just saved you some trouble. I hope somebody's not selling a bunch of stuff really cheap at the flea market. I'm going to be really tempted to buy it. I don't need more things, but I'm also not going to leave it for somebody else. Hey, I'll get to it eventually. I can't guarantee that I'm going to play a game with them, but I can guarantee that I'll get them built. Oh, we just have a piece that fell off? Yep. Yeah, a lot of this stuff is just hanging on by a thread. All right, that's another piece to glue on. So one on the 85 and one on the 37. No biggie. I'm trying to hold this thing lightly as it is, and it's still not good enough sometimes. There's the chair that has a peg. And that thing, and that thing. I'm not hardly putting any pressure on it, and the thing is still, it's falling apart. Yeah, I knew that. I figured that was going to happen. It was going to get all limpy and fall down. Even though I put very little. We'll leave that just like that. Well, they made me pull the glue over here. So let me glue this down as well. I don't know how I'm going to get that thing to stay in place. I really don't want to use super glue. I have very little faith in super glue. Some light over here so I can see what I'm doing. I think I'm going to have to epoxy that piece in. Oh man, did this piece fall off? Dadgummit, I didn't see that. Now, if it comes down to it, we just epoxy the shit out of all this stuff. Like I said, this is not. These aren't very durable on the battlefield. If I'm already having these issues and nobody's touched them yet. And we haven't even dealt with that dude that picks up 50 figures and drops them across the field. Yeah, that's why I'm not gonna. I have no interest in playing. Random people don't get to play with my stuff that I spend a lot of effort working on. Okay, we'll leave you. We'll leave your happy ass alone. Okay, it's kind of hard to see if this is looking how I like it. Usually you can't tell that until you start doing the weathering part. All right, so we're going to grab the two colors that end up coming from the base, or it doesn't have a base, but the ones we use to weather, and that is the U.S. Field Drab and the Iraqi Sand. Run across the street from New York. That's a benefit? I don't know. If the store's open. Hopefully you guys have stores that are open, you know, all night and stuff like that. Yeah, I don't know how long I'm going to be on here, so maybe I'm here. If not, we'll catch you on the next time. I think we're going to weather this thing and call it a day. I'm working on something a little bit. That's good enough for me. Just a little bit of something every day. I think we need more substance to this. Here we go. Don't want to cover this with so much stuff that you can't tell that the tires are supposed to be black, or, you know, dark rubber, that they're made of rubber. I don't know why I'm having so much trouble with this today. Maybe I'm just trying to be too frugal with the amount of paint I'm putting out there. So when these paints become half empty, they become they tend to tip over more. There we go. I don't know why those pieces broke on the 85 millimeter. I'm going really, really lightly. I'm not adding a whole lot of detail to it. Not a whole lot of pressure to it. What I meant to say. There's other ways to do this. I've just found this method works well for me. It gives me the kind of the look I'm interested in without spending a ton of different steps on it. If I ever get to Africa, I'm gonna do desert vehicles. I'm gonna do it the same way, except my weathering is gonna be heavier. So I don't, even though it's realistic, I don't like using the powders. I don't like a light color that works its way into a crevice. I like my crevices to stay as the darkest part of the vehicle, the weapon, whatever it is, are the cracks and nooks and crannies. And when you're driving, a vehicle or a piece of ordnance or something across sand, you're going to invariably get, the baby powder stuff that's going to go into the nooks and crannies. That's where it's going to settle. So realistically, that's how it looks. But the problem is that because you're playing with these small things at a distance, you need to have the contrast between the lighter portions of it and the darker, which I like. I like it being dark, so I'm never going to use powders and make the nooks and crannies to. It just doesn't look right to me as a war game miniature because at 3 feet, 4 feet away, it just ends up turning into a blur. You're not going to be able to see all the details of it. So it's stylized a little bit, but you still need to have weathering. But I don't want the powders in the crevices. I want the crevices to stay dark because not only do they represent, you know, parts that would be dirtier, but they also represent parts that would the contrast that you see with the human eye 3 feet away. Otherwise, it just turns into a blurry thing, all like the same thing. And I've noticed that, and it's a personal choice. There's several painters that I think a lot of. I would say that they definitely paint even better than I do. But they use the powder method, and they'll do vehicles there'll be like 16 different steps to them, and they look great. But if you look at them too far away on the tabletop, it just looks too. It just doesn't. It doesn't go with the same look of the figures. So it's just up to personal choice. And I just choose not to do that. And I like the way that mine turn out better for the purposes I have for them, and it's also a lot less work. So it's kind of a win-win. But that's just kind of something I discovered recently, maybe only a year ago. I only started doing vehicles a year ago after like 20 years hiatus, and I watched a lot of videos, and I was concerned that I was going to have a hard time finding my style in vehicles, and it didn't take long. I've been really happy with the results. So, and again, it just depends what you want to do with it, because you're the one that needs to be happy with it. Because if you're not happy, you're going to stop doing the hobby. Other people's opinion only matters so much. They're not going to be the ones that need to be motivated every morning to get up out here and create things. If you get discouraged, then nothing else gets created, regardless of whether or not somebody else likes your handiwork or not. So ultimately, you need to be happy with the results. All right, now I'm going to do what I like to say. I'm going to put on my glasses so I can see what the hell I've been painting. And so I can see, like, at 3 feet away what this looks like. And that looks pretty good to me, contrast-wise. Of course, you won't really know until you put the gun crew on it. Definitely no more weathering than that. That's plenty of it. All right, well, I'm going to go ahead and shut this down. So I got to start putting things away for the house showing is happening this morning, open house this morning. But anyways, probably won't be back on later today. Got to do a fair amount of traveling today. But we'll be back on during the week, and we'll catch up where we left off. All right, folks, have a good one.